Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we look at what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now today I want to talk about the desperation of the US and its useful idiots in the EU and the G7. Now that their sanctions on Russia have been a complete failure, they're now embarking on imposing secondary sanctions on countries that continue to trade with Russia, some of whom are members of the BRICS. Now on December the 11th, the ambassadors of the EU member states reached a consensus on the 50th package of anti-Russian sanctions. Alongside Russian entities, the sanctions list encompasses numerous companies from Serbia, Iran, the United Arab Emirates and China, which according to the document indirectly contribute to Russia's advancement in military and technological capabilities by circumventing export restrictions. Now, as you're aware from the Western media, almost everything is dual use, from shovels for hand-to-hand combat to washing machine chips for power missiles. Jesus, these people are crazy. These are known as secondary sanctions, and these measures, they hope, will exert significant pressure on Russia's trading partners and could have an impact on the Russian economy. Well, good luck. It hasn't worked so far now, has it? I mean, this hasn't occurred. It's unlikely to occur in the future. As of mid-December, secondary sanctions were in effect against only 744 companies out of tens of thousands of companies that are counterparties for Russia. So what can we understand on the reason behind these secondary sanctions, and do they have any legal basis? Well, the answer is there's no legal basis for these illegal sanctions, strictly speaking. In the jurisprudence of the USA, the EU, Great Britain and Japan, there's no concept of secondary sanctions. There's no doubt that the restrictions imposed on Russia and its trading partners are illegal, just as the same as the rest of the sanctions are. They weren't imposed by the UN, so they've got no legal. However, the sanctions are in violation of the WTO, the UN Charter, the General Right to Development, which is a legal term, was set by Andrei Fashchenko. He's an Installment Institute of Growth Economics. From a legal international point of view, sanctions are unilateral restrictive measures that contradict the principles and norms of international law. These sanctions violate the principles of the sovereign equality of states, non-interference in international affairs and free trade. Consequently, it's both feasible and imperative to circumvent these sanctions and adhering to the legal framework and proper legal justification. States have the right to protect their economic interests and ensure the well-being of their citizens, relying on the norms of international law, says Vladimir Petrov, who's an international lawyer and a member of the Intersessional Financial Advisory Committee of the IOC UNESCO. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website, SCOBRICSInsight.com, to further develop it. You can do this by making a small donation, which can be done by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you all now just for watching, because every viewer counts to me, and I really do appreciate that. Plus, your comments, of course, are wonderful. The initiators of the sanctions have, of course, found a justification for the trade restrictions in US law. In the 2017 legislation, counting America's adversaries through sanctions, that's anybody who they don't like, yet another law made up to justify US aggression against each other. Director General of Russian International Affairs Council Ivan Timofeyev adds the provision of the US Presidential Executive Order number 14114 of December 22nd, 2023, which gives the US Treasury the authority to impose, block and other sanctions against foreign financial institutions that carry out transactions related to the Russian military industrial complex and certain dual-use goods. That means everything from shovels to again, in certain provisions of the Act 1 of the Executive Order 10424 of 2021, stipulates blocking sanctions can be imposed on any persons, including those from third countries, interacting with specific sectors of the Russian economy, financial, mining, construction, electronics and others. Now, according to Timothy, as of mid-February, 744 companies were subject to blocking sanctions, meaning their assets in the United States are frozen and any transactions with them in the United States are prohibited. Now, The United States seems to interpret its jurisdiction very broadly, as in if it doesn't like something, it'll sanction it. If transactions involving dollars are made in favour of that, the counterparty may face criminal liability because the United States considers settlements in dollars to be in its jurisdiction, and it will enforce a legal framework in that. In a presentation given by the Russian International Affairs Council at the 17th Eurasian Economic Forum, which took place in the United Arab Emirates on December the 5th, it was revealed that in 2022 the US Treasury Department imposed prohibiting measures against 76 foreign legal entities associated with Russia. By 2023 this is up to 235, and in the first 8 months of 2024 it was up to 278. Now this indicates a rapid escalation in the imposition of secondary sanctions on companies that are friendly, and it just keeps growing. I mean, Timothy attributes this to the accumulation of evidence pertaining to so-called violations by different countries. I mean, according to data at the end of November, the largest number of secondary sanctions were imposed on companies from China, with 207. Almost half as many were imposed on structures in one of Russia's other major important trading partners, Turkey. That was 106. And, of course, one of the most financial hubs, the United Arab Emirates and BRICS member. Funnily enough, Cyprus ranks fourth in terms of the number of companies that have fallen under secondary sanctions, with India ranking fifth and Switzerland ranking sixth. Now, in all of these countries except Cyprus, sanctions were imposed mainly for violations of export supply rules, while in Cyprus it was mostly companies that are certainly affiliated with Russian structures that came under attack. Now, it's also quite noticeable and notable that businesses in the post-Soviet countries of Central Asia account for only 29% of the secondary sanctions. That's probably because the US doesn't actually know what the hell's going on there, and they don't actually have a huge amount of technology, so basically they might be used for transshipment. And it's very difficult for the US to track the supply of goods to these countries with obviously the payment systems as well. I mean, it's worth noting that secondary sanctions are occasionally lifted, though infrequently. 18 cases have been documented, all of which resulted from the termination of relations with Russian counterparties. I mean, according to the data, the law firm Brace, their data, in the first half of 2024, 494 countries from 57 countries were subject to secondary US sanctions for dealing with Russia. I mean, the most prevalent reason for this, 51%, was deliveries to Russia of high-priority electronics, industrial goods and equipment under export controls of the US Treasury Department. 38% of restrictions were due to a company's ties to a sanctioned entity, including a legal entity. Now, logistics lags far behind, ranking third, but only 4% of cases. It's not worrying that secondary sanctions are not actually imposed on any large global company. I mean, plenty of them are working and active in Russia, but you never seem to get anything. First, these large corporations have full legal and compliance departments that monitor everything that's going on with sanctions regimes. Secondly, the application of sanctions to large companies may cause a negative reaction from their governments and entail diplomatic complications given their transnational nature. Thirdly, measures may negatively affect the global economy, which the West is seeking to avoid, which is why it is still buying Russian LNG and pipeline gas. Now, secondary sanctions are more problematic because they have a psychological impact on businesses in friendly countries, and there's a general reluctance to work with entities subject to American sanctions, mainly because the fear factor of you getting extradited to America and spending billions or millions on your defence and having to do a plea bargain or ending up in jail for 25 years. I mean, some of Russia's trading partners utilise the potential risk of sanctions as a justification for price increases and escalation. It's widely acknowledged you'll still find ways around that. I mean, one strategy is establishment of a layer of companies for the purchase or sale of goods in this external circuit. Many structures that were subject to American secondary sanctions were created precisely just to circumvent the sanctions. These companies will eventually be discovered, when they have, they might only have done a few contracts, but they might have made as many as 5,000 or 6,000 deliveries, totaling tens of millions of dollars. I mean, the success of this confrontation will depend on the efficiency of the American controllers, but basically they're playing whack-a-mole. Once they come up with one method, Russia just get around it. As Timothy reported, US monitors of sanctions goods are reliant only on analysis of dollar transactions, and it has to look for other information and seek information from banks and embassies. I mean, American manufacturers themselves often try and monitor their goods, and if they suspect violations, they're quick to report them because they don't want to get into trouble, as in, And the US can be very draconian in the way it deals with business transgressions. I mean, modern big data and artificial technologies are facilitating the tracking of complex schemes to circumvent sanctions, but they don't do anything to stop them. I mean, the use of alternative currencies and offshore companies have just been the one way that Russia's been able to do it. I mean, one of the mechanisms of counteraction is development of alternative trade and payment systems. When faced constraints, it's essential to look at the other options in the context of the dominance of the few reserve countries. Countries that do not align that then have unfavourable terms and looking for alternative solutions. I mean, the successful implementation of the alternative systems now going to be significant, and that's what the BRICS are working on. And I'm sure that we will see it. I mean, the West is losing out from this development. What's really going to happen is these systems that are in development with the BRICS are really going to change the world, and the noticeable that recently elected Trump has indicated that he intends to import tariffs on anybody that decides to relinquish the dollar. Well, good luck with that, because the dollar keeps dropping. So, anyway, he can demand anything and everything he wants, but whether he gets it is unlikely. Thank you for watching. BRICS forever, and I'll see you all soon. Please like, subscribe, and if you want to help me out, please click on the thanks button, and I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.